So here I am, I'm 31, I'm rich, I'm successful, I've got 3 kids, a healthy marriage. Like, if you could have painted the perfect life, like I was living that. And I wake up that morning from a call from my mother-in-law, who's basically informing me that my wife is in an ambulance going to the hospital with a life-threatening emergency.
No way.
And, so my whole world at that moment got flipped upside down.
Did you lose that baby?
Yeah.
So you lost the baby. So you have that.
Yep.
Then you have your wife.
Yeah, lost the baby, knew we lost the baby.
Gosh, man.
I'm thinking I'm going to lose my wife. I walk into the room, heart rate monitor's still on, and I remember I was sitting next to her, what happened, and she said, when I heard your voice, it gave me life. And in that moment, I realized that really our spirits and our energy and everything was connected.
Wow.
Welcome to Flying High with Cam,
Yayo.
a podcast where I combine 2 things I love.
This is insane.
Interviewing the most successful people I know
You're the baddest guy in town.
while flying helicopters.
Engine failure.
Fly with me. I want to hear your stories, learn from your experiences, and build a community. This is Flying High with Cam.
All right, welcome to Flying High with Cam, where I get to do what I love, interview people that I know while flying helicopters. Man, I got my boy Tyler Hall with me today. Welcome, man.
What's up, man? Thank you. This is fun.
Dude, the first time I met you was at a lunch through my business partner, Evan Ritchie, you've been buddies with him for a while. You pull up on a street bike Ducati, and I'm just like, who is this freaking D-bag? Turns out you're a pretty good guy, man.
Oh, I don't know.
Now we're up in the air and you're trusting me with your life. So, no, like shortly after that, you had me on a street bike at your racetrack going 120 miles an hour. So I think it's been a healthy relationship. You've pushed me to do things. You're up in the helicopter with me now. But, dude, your life is just so interesting to me. And I want to talk about it today because you've lived, and when we were preparing for the show, you're like, I've basically lived 2 different lives. And I think that's perfectly said. You've built up this company, sold it. I think when we were introduced, which was last year, right?
Yeah.
You were kind of in that retirement phase, and then I've seen you in the past 6 to 8 months just like amp it up again. So tell the people that are watching that don't know you, basically like kind of your build up of your company, and then I want to get into everything that you've been doing after because it's just fascinating. From you're raising a fund now that is worth $100 million. You've launched your personal brand and had a ton of success with that. Like I said, you're racing street bikes, which is just absolutely crazy. And I want to hear everything about it, man.
Thanks, brother. I live a really good life, and I feel super fortunate for that. I like to introduce myself, though, to try to detach my identity from what I've done or what I do, right? So, first off, husband, 12 years, amazing wife, 4 kids, father to 4 kids. We just had our 4th a few months ago. And that's my main priority. Also, as you mentioned, I run a podcast now called the Roller Coaster Podcast, so we can talk about.
Yeah.
But also built in.
Which I love that name, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And how you talk about business because it is a roller coaster.
Yeah, for sure. Also built and scaled, raised venture capital for a company and had an exit to a public company in 2021. And I think like the reason I describe my life now as 2 different lives is, for probably the first 10 years of my career, I was really focused on wealth generation and chasing the next coin. And, eventually I did Drivably, which was a total roller coaster. We raised a bunch of venture capital. We were the first company in North America backed by Porsche ever.
Which, this is your first company, right?
My first company, yeah.
So how do you go from like, hey, I want to start this company to, you might be the only person I know that has raised venture capital in their first company.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? How did you get introduced to that?
I probably had an unfair advantage because my brother was a VC in San Francisco as I was launching my startup. And so, because of that, he was super connected to pretty much every VC in the Bay Area. So he made like 40 or 50 introductions.
So he was a huge mentor to you, and hey, this is how you do it. This is the lingo to speak to them. Wow, that is huge.
And I think just like, at the time, to be fair, right, I am a huge proponent of the fact that, raising money and successfully exiting a company is a lot about timing. And when we went to market to raise capital, this was in late 2018, early 2019, the capital markets were super frothy. And so to go and pull together $5 or $10 million at that time was a piece of cake, right?
Yeah, I think you're down. Come on, man.
Compared to today. So, I did pitch I pitched about 50 VCs before I got my first yes. And that's hard, right? Because you're going through and you're doing the reps and you're flying to different places to meet with people, and
it's exhausting.
It's
when I was buying out with Dusty, when I was doing that buyout with Dusty,
yeah.
I couldn't believe it was an art. Like, you were learning how to sell a different product to your business.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely didn't go through 50 different people. Like, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
How did you stay confident during that whole time?
I don't know that I stayed confident. I was probably too dumb, or naive to realize that, like, we were pretty much out of money before we got our first yes. So me and a partner, we put in the first $500,000 into the company, and we blew through that pretty fast, like within 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, like, we're basically, this is pretty rad, by the way. We're flying through the Superstition Mountains, going over this little pass. This is awesome. But yeah, me and a partner, we put in the first money. We blew through that money. I was 1 or 2 payrolls away from literally running out of money, and so I just kept my head down.
I love it.
Finally got my first yes, and after we got that yes, we got 2 or 3 others, because investors tend to like to,
jump on the bandwagon, but nobody likes to commit first. So were you telling people, like, hey, we're literally 2 payrolls away from nothing?
And, no way. I was all the confidence in the world going into these, but I'd leave and just feel sick.
But that's what I mean. Like, there's not very many sales reps that can go out there and pitch with 100% confidence that this is the best investment they can, knowing that the house is on fire behind you.
Yeah,
like, sure. You walk out of that meeting, your phone's blowing up from your CFO, from your partner, from whoever, like, hey, we got to handle this right now,
Yeah.
So you do that, which is just unbelievable. You raise the money, you have the exit, then what?
Yeah, so we end up catching a drift during COVID. COVID really, again, from a timing standpoint, it took our business to the moon. We shouldn't have exited in the timeline that we did. But COVID really helped. It was a frothy buyer's market. We had 4 or 5 companies really interested in buying the whole company. We ran a process with an investment banker, right? And ultimately, we sold the company in October of 2021. So here I am. I'm 31. I'm rich. I'm successful. I've got 3 kids, a healthy marriage. Like, if you could have painted the perfect life, like, I was living that life.
You just bought the house? Like, is that when you bought that nice house?
Bought this nice house, we've got everything that we could ever want as a family.
Yep.
And 5 months after the acquisition, I was in New York City doing the CNBC Wall Street NASDAQ thing with the CEO of the parent company. This was like one of the biggest days of my career.
Wow.
Right? And I wake up that morning from a call from my mother-in-law, who's basically informing me that my wife is in an ambulance going to the hospital with a life-threatening emergency.
No way.
And, so my whole world at that moment got flipped upside down. I spent the next, I text my assistant, I said, I've got to get the next flight out of here. I'm in New York City, she's in Phoenix. I'm as far away, basically, as you can be.
Right.
Feeling pretty hopeless. And, I'm getting text message updates from my father-in-law while I'm on the plane. And the updates are, just got to the hospital, checked her into triage. They found 2 liters of blood in her abdomen.
Oh my gosh.
They're rushing her in for an emergency surgery. It's like not looking good. And then for the next 4 hours, it was still in surgery, still in surgery, still in surgery.
While you're sitting on a plane, can't do anything.
While I'm stuck on a plane. And, this was a time of some super deep self-reflection. And as the plane's descending, coming into Phoenix, he says, hey, I just talked to the doctor, and, it's not looking good. And basically,
this is her dad telling you this.
Her dad, yeah, her dad telling me what I believed was that she had passed away, but I'm going to wait until you get here to let you know that. And so,
oh my gosh,
I went to that place. Worst case scenario, for the next couple of hours, I believed that my wife was dead. And I get to the hospital. I remember running past the emergency room. I get up to the 2nd floor. I'm expecting to walk into a room and have my father-in-law there to embrace me.
Yeah.
And I walk in the room, and the first thing I realize is that the heart rate monitor in the room is still
You're
going.
Just like, thank you.
And so, I just had this like overwhelming feeling of gratitude for one more opportunity with her, right? And at this point, it was looking like she was still not going to make it. She was sort of in a state of, comatosis at this time.
So what happened?
She had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy with our fourth child.
Okay.
And when that happens in the home, the probability of the mother living through that is very low, because basically what happens is the baby's growing in the fallopian tube, not in the uterus, grows big enough, it bursts, and then you bleed out, and you've got about 4 or 5 hours to live.
So this might be a dumb question, but like she just had the kid and then this happened just after? This is while she's still pregnant?
Yeah, while she's still
so
pregnant.
Did you lose that baby?
Yeah.
So you lost the baby. So you have that.
Yep.
Then you have your wife. Like
Yeah, lost the baby, knew we lost the baby.
Gosh, man.
I'm thinking I'm going to lose my wife. I walk into the room, heart rate monitor's still on, and I remember I was sitting next to her. I sat down next to her bedside, and I just asked her father, I said, hey, how's she doing? And the moment that I said that, she had this intense kind of seizure-like reaction, and doctors and nurses had to come in and calm her down. And, that night, I remember distinctly, I was laying on the couch next to her bed, and I was staring at the heart rate monitor. I don't think I blinked that entire night. And I was just waiting for this thing to flatline.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And we got to the next day, she's still alive. One night turns into a second night and a third night. We get to the third or fourth day, and she starts coming to. And it was a miracle. Like we invited a couple of hundred people to do a fast with us that day.
Yeah.
Super powerful kind of exercise where everybody doesn't eat for 24 hours. It's symbolic and a way to really call on God. And we did that, and it was
wow.
And it was powerful. And she made it. And so I remember sitting by her bedside. And
what percentage of people like survive that? Then like is this 10 out of the 10% chance of survival rate, or what is it?
When it happens in the home, it's typically less than 10% chance that you live, because just the amount of time required from that to, and the fact that I wasn't there, she was actually unconscious, had passed out. It was a miracle that
who found her?
My son found her that morning.
Gosh.
And
okay, keep going.
A lot of miracles happen.
So 10% chance. So the fact that she came through is like she had a 10% chance.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
And so, I'm sitting by her bedside, and I remember I just said, hey, what do you remember? And I'm asking her questions, and I said, do you remember kind of having that seizure a couple of days ago? What happened? And she said, when I heard your voice, it gave me life.
Okay.
And that was one of those moments in my life, maybe the most meaningful moment in my entire life, where I realized that, when you take somebody's hand in marriage, it's not just about two people trying to come together and make it work. It's really you have to become one person. And in that moment, I realized that really our spirits and our energy and everything was connected.
Wow.
And it was a really powerful thing for us.
And she remembered that.
She remembered that. So, the next couple months, super tough. She ends up fighting, making it through, and today is very healthy. But, that experience, I am a different person fundamentally from the previous 31 years of my life to I am today because of that, for sure.
Dang, man. But you had the exit literally the day in New York. Worst news ever. So now it's like you have this calling for work. Was that a blessing, or did you need work as like a kind of a way to distract your mind? Or were you grateful that it was sold and like, hey, now I don't have to worry about work. I got this money. I'm just going to be with the family.
Yeah, I was really actually pretty grateful for the timing, and it wouldn't. My family needed so much of my attention and care at that time that it wouldn't have made sense for me to continue to stay at the parent company.
Yeah.
And some people know this, but like I left lots of money on the table, millions of dollars on the table by leaving early.
Yeah.
That's a small detail that I don't share because it's not important, but it is the truth. And
yeah.
And I would never have gone back and changed it for anything because it was the right thing to do. So.
Dang, man. Okay, so, I mean, how long is that kind of where we met? Like 6 months after this happened with your wife, or what? I'm trying to put all the pieces together because it seemed like when we met, it's not like you weren't working, but you were kind of doing your thing. You were going to the track 3 or 4 times a week. You were working out every day. Like, what happened after that? And how long did you chill with the wife, like at home by her side?
Yeah, it's a good question. I spent probably 3 months being full-time dad and husband to my wife.
Okay.
And then like as I started to get back in the game, right, and started to really think through what I wanted to do next, I had a bunch of companies approach me to come in and be the CEO of their company. So in a span of about 3 or 4 months, I probably had 8 to 10 companies, early stage software companies, let's say between 5 and 25 million of ARR, approached me to come and be the CEO. And it was like, no matter what the offer was, it was a hell no 100% of the time, because I understand what is required to go and do that.
Right.
And I wasn't in a place at that time mentally or emotionally to want to go and put myself back in the operator role.
Yeah.
And so,
Which you're 31 years old, man. That's crazy.
yeah, it is surreal. And so I said, look, I'm gonna sit on a few boards. I'd gotten invited to join a few boards, and so, I sit on 4 or 5 boards. I'm an advisor to 4 or 5 companies. One of the companies that I was on the board of, the CEO was mandated by the chairman of the board to get a CEO coach. And he said, hey, man, I want it to be you. I want you to be my CEO coach. And, I told him, I said, that's not really what I do. And, long story short, I start coaching him. I realized I really enjoy coaching CEOs. And so
Now you've launched that.
I launched a CEO coaching practice about a year ago, and I've coached about 10 CEOs in the last 12 months.
That's awesome. Man.
Very one-on-one, very high touch.
Is that an hour a week? What does that look like?
It's a 1 hour a week commitment.
Okay.
And so, I really enjoy doing that. I decided that for whatever I was going to do next, I wanted to start to build an audience and build influence, right? And so I was always pretty uncomfortable when it came to social media.
Right.
It was never my thing. I actually really liked kind of staying quiet and in a closet. I didn't really want people to know what I was doing all the time. And, but I set a goal at the beginning of last year. It was basically April when I launched my podcast. And so we launched the Roller Coaster Podcast. And, I put a lot of time and a lot of energy and I've invested a lot of capital into making that thing what it is today, and never expected it to be that big, honestly. But, it was something I really enjoyed sitting down and having these kind of discussions. And so now I've got the Roller Coaster Podcast that I do, and that's been incredibly fulfilling for the last year.
What's been the hardest part? Because a lot of people are preaching podcast, but a lot of people say you need to stay consistent, and it takes 2 to 3 years to gain, a lot of traction. You've been able to have success, within a short amount of time, 6-7 months. And what have you done differently? What do you wish you would have done differently? Or you said you're further ahead than you wanted to be, but what have you done to get there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say further than I wanted. I would say further than I expected. Right?
Okay.
Certainly I wanted this thing to become big and to reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of learnings, right? The first one is, when you first launch a podcast, you think, I'm going to only sit down with people I want to sit down with and only have the conversations I want to have and only talk about the things that I want, right? And you start to realize, so I did about 15 episodes like that, and I realized that nobody really cared, right? There wasn't that many people that listened. And
I want to care about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, my interests were not that interesting to the mass audiences, right?
Okay.
And so at some point, I ended up interviewing a guy named Mason Sawyer. Mason Sawyer lost his entire family except for his 3-year-old son in a car accident last year.
Jeez.
And he got on and told his story about getting the phone call from the police officer that was informing him of this.
Wow.
And the traumas and the things that he's had to deal with to cope with that and not take his own life. And it was super powerful. That episode did about 10 times the amount of downloads and views than any other previous
business
episode.
or any topic that you had in mind.
And so I realized, I was like, wait a minute. I think people actually care more about the real life stuff than the stuff that I wanted to talk about, right? Which was business at the time. And so the Roller Coaster Podcast, which started out as interviewing founders who had launched and then ultimately exited companies and kind of that roller coaster journey, turned into the roller coaster of people's lives, right?
Okay.
So now I interview guests that go through really hard things like the loss of a spouse or loss of a child or loss of a limb or whatever it is. And the audience has been really receptive to it. So I guess the first learning that I want to share with you and with the audience is just I've listened to the audience and what people want.
Yeah.
And I've tried to cater the guests that I bring on and the questions that I ask and the conversations we have based on that.
Dang, man. I love that. So you're one of the few people I feel like that do a great job of just staying in touch. We met each other last year. We went out to the track a few times. You came flying. Like, we're good buddies, but you always send that text message or phone call like, hey, man, how you doing? Which is what sparked this. I'm like, dude, I'm doing great. Why don't you come on the podcast? Let's go up. But you're like, I'm up to a lot of great things. Like, what are you excited about right now? What's your next thing for 2024? Look at these little caves right here, man. They're so sick.
Dude, that's crazy. Wow, that's beautiful. 2024, there's a lot I'm excited about. I do want to touch on that, though. I think that's one of the most important micro habits that humans, but specifically men, can make a part of their daily routine is just checking in with people that you love, right? So all of us probably have between 5 and 50 people that we would consider people that we really love.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to frequently, right, check in with these people and let them know that you're thinking about them, because you never know what somebody might be going through, and you never know how far that message, it's such a simple thing, how far that message can go with somebody.
Is that just as simple as, hey, if someone comes to mind, you just pull up your phone and reach out, or do you have a checklist? And that kind of seems funny to say that, but it's like, okay, like, hey, like this week I'm going to follow up with these different people, or is it just whoever you think about? Here's another cool cave right here.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having a checklist and treating it more like a process, but for me, it's if somebody comes into my heart or into my mind, I always send the text, no matter what, right? So it could be back-to-back days where I'm checking on you and you're like, dude, I'm good. I told you I was good yesterday, but
really,
I just always do it. I just always do it. So,
how often do you feel like people open up to you?
I feel like more now because I've helped my inner circle understand that I'm safe.
Yeah,
I'm a safe person to talk to, and so but not always. A lot of times it's, hey man, I'm good. Thanks for checking in. How you guys doing? And that's the end of it, right? But there are times where people go, man, I really needed to hear from somebody today, and I've been struggling with something, and I'd love to have somebody to talk to, and I'll always call them, and so it's just a meaningful practice to get used to.
I love it, man.
So 2024, there's a lot going on. Obviously, the podcast is a big one for me. I'm launching a men's coaching community, which I'm really passionate and excited about, which is just to help men level up. It's called Levels, in the 4 core disciplines of life, which I think are health, which includes mental and physical health, relationships, spirituality, and finance. And so, if we can help men level up in those areas, I find that incredibly fulfilling. And by the way, I don't have all the answers, but I'm great at building community and putting other men together that help lift each other. So, Levels is going to be a big one. Our first retreat's in one week from today. And
who's your target? Hold on, this is a funny story that just reminded me. When I was training for my Ironman, a lot of the training is bike riding, obviously. And there's no better hills than these hills. We're coming up on the backside of Canyon Lake, and they call this EOP, end of pavement. So I'm riding down here training one day, and literally right here on this bend, I get going too fast. Right here. I get going too fast, bro, and I have to slam on the brakes, and I just slide for 50 feet. And I literally, right here, I almost went off this cliff. This doesn't look very steep, but I'm going like 50 miles an hour, and I take this turn, and I can't get it, and I almost go off this cliff right here and literally die. My Garmin watch, have you ever had this happen on your Garmin watch? When you fall hard, it starts to alert, like, hey, do you want us to send authorities? 911. My butt's just like hamburger meat. Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, bro.
It was so funny. But anyways, oh my gosh. So who's like that target demographic? Is this $100,000 a year? Is this $20,000 a year? What is it?
It's a good question. We're going to launch 3 different programs. The first one that we're launching is our middle one, right? So there's going to be an entry level, a mid one, and then kind of a high level program. The mid level program is $1,500 a month. It's cohorts of 50 men, Okay, it's we've built out a fully customized app and database of tons of great resources for men on these 4 different disciplines.
Yeah.
We do a once a week call that's 1 hour. We bring in special guests and speakers to these calls regularly. And then once a quarter, we do a 3-day retreat with all the men. Every other one, you get to bring your significant other. So it's incredibly meaningful program for men. And, it's $18,000 a year is the investment, but I think I think these men are finding that's well worth it. The other one we're going to do is probably like $99 or $199 a month. You can join our weekly call, have access to our application, but there's not a lot of kind of one-on-one or in-person or community time.
Okay.
And then later down the road, we're going to launch a higher level program that's $120,000 a year, so it'll be $10,000 a month. That's like once a month, in person, full day. It's a lot more, financial and business and leadership focused than the other two.
Okay.
But that one we probably won't launch until 2025. So
when you say we, who's we?
It's me and one partner. My partner's name's Eddie Pinero.
Okay.
Eddie's been a basically motivational speaker and content creator for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And like the perfect guy to come in and help motivate and inspire these men.
Right.
So I've got probably more of the business and community building side. Eddie's got a lot of the content and creative stuff that's required to build and scale one of these programs.
I think you're inspired by that, because that's one of the things that changed my life, is hiring my life coach. But he's $100,000 a year. And there's a lot of people out there that I found as I've opened up my network and kind of shared like, hey, I want to help you scale your business, or I want to help answer some questions for you, and just doing it for free. There's so many people out there that don't have guidance or a mentor to help them out. And so with you making it that cheap, man, and providing that much value, I think you're going to have a lot of success, and there's going to be a lot of people that benefit from it, because there's so many people that are out there that are just thirsty for this stuff, but either don't have the money yet to pay the $100,000 coaches, or they don't have the dad or the uncle or whoever to help them out.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I love that. What else you got going, man? There's one other thing you wanted to talk to me about. Don't hold back on me.
Yeah, so the other one is for the last 6-7 months, I've been working on, somewhat quietly actually, working on putting together a fund. I built and scaled and sold a company in the automotive software business. And I saw an opportunity. I sit on the board and advise several of these companies. And I saw an opportunity, given the macroeconomic environment that we're in right now, to go in and buy these companies for 2 or 3 times top line multiples, which, a lot of SaaS companies in a healthy market are 10, 12, 15 times top line. Mm-hmm. And so I saw an opportunity to go time the market a little bit and roll up 4, 5, or 6 companies next year. And so I've gotten we've been working with a couple of PEs and family offices to raise a tranche of capital. Our initial target goal was $50 million. We actually have a committed single LP from a family office on $100 million for our first fund.
Jeez, man.
And the goal is to go buy 5 or 6 companies that are kind of vertically aligned in automotive software.
Yeah.
Put them together, create some economies of scale, hire a really good management team, and then exit the company as sort of one large business in 2 to 5 years. And, we think we can 2 or 3 or 5x our money doing that. And, so I'm excited about that. I've got 2 partners in that business. Both of them have taken companies public themselves. Both of them have one of them's done $2.5 billion of consolidation roll-ups like this in the last 20 years.
That's so cool, man.
And so, I feel very fortunate. I'm kind of the rookie at the table, and my main responsibility is networking with the founders and the CEOs that I know, and pulling them into the portfolio. So,
dude, that's so freaking sick. Once again, like, you have so many different things going on. You're one of the most, how do I put this? Like, you think deeper than most people that I know on self-reflection, but also like self-awareness of where you're at in all aspects of your life, whether that's health, that's your mental capacity, or wherever you're at. Like, who's pushing you to do this? Like, what's that driving motivational factor there? Because most people would launch, like what you're doing with these groups of people, these men, like that's a full-time job, let alone raising this capital and building up time. And you're doing the podcast. Like, you have a lot of irons in the fire right now.
Oh yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for saying that. That's really kind of you. I don't think I've always been this way. I think it's something. I think it's a skill that I've developed, and a lot of it has to do with that accident that my wife had. Really just putting things into perspective. So, I think one of the things that I do well, probably better than most, is the way that I allocate my time is incredibly intentional.
Yeah.
And so, certain days of the week, I am focused on certain things, right? So I have, let's call it 3 different kind of core businesses that I'm working on right now.
Okay.
My calendar is allocated on a daily basis towards those 3 different things, right? So like Monday, for example, is a day that I'm focused on all our Arcus, which is our roll-up fund, right?
Yeah.
Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm focused on Levels, our coaching community. Thursday, I'm focused on, I still coach a handful of CEOs. I still have board work. I still have advisor work. And so I'm focused on that. And then Friday, I'm focused predominantly on the podcast, right? And so I time block my time that way, and I try to be super intentional when I'm working for those 8 to 10 hours in a day. And it feels like if you're intentional with your time, you can actually get a lot more done in less time than you think you can. I've also hired really good people around me, right? So, I talk about these things like it's all me. It's really not. Like,
Right.
I have an army of people that support these.
But to get that motivation to go, like, you're making me feel like I'm lazy, bro. I got 3 companies, and I'm like, dude, he's making me feel like a piece of crap right now. It's cool to see how you're constantly pushing yourself. You're always texting me, hey, we're doing this fast, we're doing this. What was the run? Like the overnight 24-hour
Yeah.
run thing. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what is he doing, man? So it's cool, bro. Your success is absolutely phenomenal, and I look up to you, and I appreciate, having your friendship in my life too. That's who you need in your life. It's people that want to help you in different aspects of your life, whether that's in business or family or fitness or whatever it is. But, you are who you hang out with. So
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate you, bro.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual, man. I have a ton of respect for you. I mean, we're flying around in your helicopter. This thing is insane. And you built an incredible business too. And I know you're going to have, a ton of success around this thing and the other companies that you're doing. So,
well, thanks for coming up, man. And thanks for trusting me with your life, bro.
You're welcome. This is awesome. Thanks, Cam.